2025. Commissioner Martin, could you lead us in pledge?
United States of America, to the republic which is stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Commissioner Walker, could you lead us in a prayer?
Absolutely. Please bow your heads. Father God, thank you for allowing us to come together again this month and meet and discuss the creation that you've blessed this state with. Thank you for all the blessings that you've given us and our families and our friends in this department. Thank you for continuing to keep this department safe. Please guide our decisions today going forward, and may you bless this country. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Ms. Falcon, could we get a roll call, please? Here.
Andy Brister.
Here.
Andrew Blanchard.
Here.
Jimmy Martin.
Here.
Gene Reynolds. Jonathan Walker.
Here.
Nathan Wall.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, there are 7 commissioners in attendance and we have a quorum. Secretary Bosworth is also present.
Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item number 4. I see we have a speaker pro tem Mike Johnson here. And I would like to see if we can get agenda item 12 moved up to right after number 8. So before we approve the agenda, I'd like to have that done. So okay, do we have a motion to accept the agenda? Motion by Commissioner Blanchard, second by Commissioner Walker. In opposition? All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion passes. Okay, agenda item number 5. Adoption of the special meeting minutes, August 7th, 2025. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Walker, second by Commissioner Martin. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Commission special announcement and personal privilege. Does anybody have anything? If none, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, recognition and presentation of the 2025 Louisiana Boating Education of the Year Award, Lieutenant Derek Ware, Captain Joe Russo, Boating Law Administrator, Enforcement Division.
Good morning. The Louisiana Boating Educator of the Year Award is given to an individual who has made an outstanding contribution to boating safety through education and who goes above and beyond to engage students, raise awareness, and make boating education and education initiatives relevant, thorough, and exciting. It is with great enthusiasm that I announce Lieutenant Derek Ware as the 2025 Louisiana Boating Educator of the Year. Lieutenant Ware has consistently demonstrated exceptional dedication to boating safety education. His efforts to engage and educate the public have made him a standout figure within our program, with significant contributions to both formal and outreach boating education. Since January 1st of 2024, Lieutenant Ware has certified 81 students in 7 courses, consistently ranking among the top in both certification numbers and in-person courses offered to the public. His ability to engage and effectively communicate boating safety principles has helped countless individuals develop a greater understanding of safe boating practices. His commitment to the success of these courses, as well as his ability to tailor his approach to meet the diverse needs of his students, has earned him the admiration of both students and colleagues alike. His influence extends beyond the classroom, as he has been an active participant in all of our annual campaigns, including National Safe Boating Week, Boating Education Lanyap Day, Operation Dry Water, and the Wildlife Agents Association I Got Caught Wearing My Life Jacket t-shirt program. Lieutenant Ware's enthusiasm and commitment to these initiatives have helped raise awareness and encourage safe boating practices among the public. Lieutenant Ware has also made significant contributions to our volunteer instructor program, assisting with onboarding new instructors and providing mentorship to help them develop their own skills as educators. His willingness to step up and offer guidance whenever needed has been invaluable to the continued success of our boating education program. Above all, Lieutenant Ware has consistently demonstrated a can-do attitude and a passion for ensuring that boating safety education is accessible, engaging, and effective. He has proven to be a dependable asset to our program, and his tireless dedication continues to have a lasting impact on our community's boating safety efforts. Please join me in congratulating Lieutenant Derek Ware on being the 2025 Louisiana Boating Educator of the Year.
Receive a presentation on crappie and bass populations of the Saline Larto Complex. Shelby Richard, inland fisheries biologist.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Shelby Richard, Biologist Manager of District 3 Inland Fisheries out of the Pineville office. I'm here to present some information about crappie and largemouth bass in the Saline Larto Complex. We've been aware of concerns with the crappie and bass fisheries for some time now. In fact, we've held 2 meetings in 2022 to share our findings and engage with stakeholders on these issues. So today, I'm going to revisit those findings and what we're seeing today. So a House Committee resolution requested a change to the current daily creel limit and size restrictions for crappie, and an additional request was made for a change to the current daily creel limit and size for largemouth bass in the Saline Larto Complex. Currently, bass and crappie abide by statewide regulations of 50 crappie daily, no length restriction, and 10 largemouth bass daily, no length restriction. So both of these proposed changes ask about minimum length limits. Minimum length limits are used to maintain a sustainable fish population and protect juvenile fish by ensuring that they can grow to reproduce before harvest. For a minimum length limit to be effective, there are some required variables that are needed: low recruitment, high harvest rates, adequate growth rates, and low natural mortality. Saline Larto has a high and stable recruitment variable, low harvest rates, and slower than average growth rate. So before I show these characteristics in our fishery data, let's get an understanding about crappie. There are 2 different kinds of crappie: sac-a-lait, white perch. You have what's called a black crappie and a white crappie. Both species inhabit the Saline Larto Complex. The black crappie prefers clear water and is structure oriented, while the white crappie can tolerate muddy waters and are pelagic feeders, meaning they like the open water to feed in. So let's talk about their reproductive habits. Crappie are a boom and bust species. They can have highly successful spawns every 3 to 5 years. Females can lay anywhere from 30,000 to 200,000 eggs per season. They are very prolific at spawning. That's why they're not recommended to stock in ponds, because eventually you'll get a stunted population. The spawn begins when water temperatures reach 60 to 65 degrees. It is associated with the photo period, and the time frame of the spawn is from February in South Louisiana through April in North Louisiana. So how long does a crappie live? As you can see with the graph, most crappie live 3 years or less statewide. The average water body maximum age is 8.01 years. So Saline Larto is a large natural backwater complex located in east central Louisiana. Portions of the complex are located in Catahoula, LaSalle, Avoyelles, and Rapides parishes. The complex includes Larto Lake, Saline Lake, Shad Lake, and numerous interconnecting bayous and smaller lakes. The complex is an open system and receives regular backwater flooding from the Red River, Black River, and Little River. Dewey Wills WMA lies adjacent to the complex and encompasses the majority of its shoreline. So here's a list of some significant events that has taken place on the complex. I want to focus on 2018 and 2019 that are in bold because those events are still significant to what we're seeing in the complex and fishery today. So this is a graph, a water level graph of those two floods. The blue line on the graph shows the water level stages of both flooding events. Both have reached 50-foot MSL, which is 13 feet above pool stage. The red line is the pool stage that is set at 37 feet. In 2018, the flood was from March through mid-May, and in 2019, there were multiple flood pulses that prolonged the flood into the late summer. It was from January through August, so it stayed flooded for 8 months. So this here is a GIS map that was created of the complex to show a 47-foot MSL reference, which is 10 feet above pool stage. All of the blue within the red boundary is underwater at 47 feet. The darker it is, the deeper it is. The prolonged flooding turned the 8,200 acre complex into 31,000 acres for several months during the spring and summer. The dark outlines of Saline, Larto, and associated bayous are 10 feet below the floodwaters where the normal pool level is. So now let's talk about the effects of the prolonged flooding events. When floods take place during the spring, the fish find new spawning grounds in the inundated areas. Referencing that 47-foot MSL, not only does the complex increase from 8,200 acres to 31,000 acres, but the carrying capacity substantially increases. Carrying capacity is the amount of individuals a habitat can support. Fish are going to fill that carrying capacity very fast in the spring during the spawn. So with this flood, we have ample nursery habitat and complex cover, which gives protection from predators. Our predators per acre has decreased because the water acreage has increased with the flood. While you may get some migration of desirable species, you also get migration of undesirable species like triploid or like grass carp and silver carp that are in the river systems. Post-flood, the littoral zone vegetation is eliminated from being inundated for several months. The littoral zone is where the vegetation grows. During the flood, that zone was 10 plus feet underwater and sunlight cannot penetrate that far down into the water column. Thus, the vegetation dies throughout the entire complex. I like to use the reference of placing a tarp over your grass in your yard for several months, and whenever you lift it up, you're left with bare ground. The same thing happened throughout the whole complex. As the flood waters are receding, the carrying capacity is reduced back to 8,200 acres, and complex cover and aquatic vegetation is scarce. So today we still have very limited beneficial aquatic vegetation in the complex for the fishery. This vegetation is very important for forage production and habitat. And also is also something that anglers target while fishing. When drastic events like these happen, fishing holes and spots can and do change. So before I get into our data, I'm going to be referencing catch per unit effort, which is CPUE. It's a measure of relative abundance of a target species, basically how many fish we caught over a period of time. With that, we can see trends in the population over the years. And I'm also going to be referencing relative weight. That is the standard or index used to determine the condition of the fish based on its length. So this here is a graph shows our lead net catch rates for both black and white crappie combined. We have an increase in crappie CPUE from 2009 to 2012, with the 2020 through 22 maintaining that high CPUE. I want to note that we are scheduled to sample crappie this fall in a couple months, and we will be looking at not only the population abundance, but also age and growth. So let's break down the crappie data more. After the prolonged high water events of 2018 and 19, the black crappie population exploded with the highest CPUE in 2020, 21, and 22. Relative weights dipped in 2020 and 21 due to overcrowding of the strong class size, increased intraspecific competition, and habitat reduction resulting from those prolonged high water years. Now, I use the term intraspecific competition. That is all of the same species competing for the same food source. Therefore, there's a lot of them. There's less food available for one individual fish. And when that happens, your relative weights decrease and your growth is slowed. In 2022, we saw a recovery in relative weights as the population stabilized and advanced with size and age. So white crappie populations and relative weights decreased in 2020, but started recovering in 21 and 22. So we've completed 2 population assessments on crappie in the Saline-Larto complex. Both have slower growth rates than statewide average. The statewide age of 10 inches for crappie is 2.62 years. Our 2009 to 2012 study concluded that it was taking the Saline-Larto crappie 3.04 years to reach 10 inches. That is about 5 months slower than average, the statewide average growth rate. The 2020 to 22 study showed an even slower growth rate due to the population boom, that habitat reduction, and increased interest-specific competition caused by the 2018-2019 floods. It concluded that crappie were reaching 10 inches in 3.26 years, which is 7.5 months slower than the statewide growth rates. And remember, crappie on average live 3 years or less statewide. So we also utilize seine net sampling for forage and sport fish reproduction data. As the prolonged floodwaters of 2019 were receding, we caught the second lowest amount of fish per seine, but the majority of those fish in those samples were sport fish, 96 bass and 109 crappie. This suggests that the sport fish population of the complex exploded due to that new yet temporary increased carrying capacity. So far, we've completed 4 creel surveys in the complex. 2021 had the second highest catch rate per angler, which is comparable to 2000 and 2015 creel surveys. However, that year had the lowest harvest and retention rates. Anglers were catching and releasing an abundance of small crappie due to the 2018-2019 booming spawn. They were basically weeding out the small ones to catch and harvest larger crappie. The bottom table shows how many anglers harvested more than 25 crappie out of all the crappie anglers surveyed for each year. In total, only 26 anglers out of 801 harvested more than 25 crappie, which equates to 3.2%. So out of those 4 creel surveys, these are the graphs that represent inch groups of the crappie harvested from those creel surveys. The 8 to 10 inch fish are the most abundant inch groups harvested from the complex. However, harvest is a good thing. This reduces that interest-specific competition and allows more room for those that are left in the population to grow. The less competition, the better potential for a faster growth rate. So what are we seeing now? We're currently conducting the 5th creel survey on Saline-Larto this year, and so far results have exceeded expectations. I do want to note that the 2025 creel survey data is preliminary creel data based on partial sampling. The final results are pending the completion of the survey, which will be at the end of the year. So far, we're on pace for the second highest catch and harvest per angler trip. Retention rates are comparable to the previous 4 creel surveys. The top 3 inch groups are 10 to 12 inch fish, and only 3 out of 78 anglers surveyed harvested more than 25 crappie so far. So now we're going to look into some of our largemouth bass data on the complex. So due to the complex having frequent spring flooding events, we typically sample largemouth bass by electrofishing in the fall. But I wanted to add this graph to show that our 2023 spring electrofishing was on par with other spring electrofishing years. So each bar represents the CPUE for a given year, with colors within each bar indicating the CPUE for each size category of largemouth bass. The stock size, which is the color in orange, and quality, which is gray, size classes were relatively strong in 2023. The low substock numbers, which is your light blue, were likely because the 2022 bass grew and were recruited into that stock category already when we sampled. So, however, in the fall of 2023, we recorded the lowest CPUE on record. This was due to the 2023 severe drought conditions that lowered the lake level by more than 2 feet. This low water condition hindered electrofishing efforts. So while the results from 2023 are low, this isn't an indication of a low bass population. We also use a metric called proportional size distribution, which is PSD, to determine how balanced the population is, and the 2023 PSD was in range of a balanced population. We are scheduled to electrofish the complex again this fall, and we will be taking age and growth data as well. So again, relative weight is the ratio of the fish's weight to the weight of a standard fish of the same length. The recommended target range of relative weights for largemouth bass is 95 to 105%, which is that green layer that you see. The 2023 data shows that the bass are just below that optimal range, which could insinuate a slower than expected growth rate. So bass angler catch rates from the creel surveys range from 1.66 to 3.53 fish caught per angler trip. The harvest per angler trip was the lowest in 2021 at 0.62 fish harvested per angler trip. And only 9 out of 781 largemouth bass anglers harvested more than 8 bass, which equates to only 3.2% of bass anglers. So here are the graphs for the largemouth bass. The 11 to 13 inch fish are the most abundant inch groups harvested from the complex. In 2021, 11, 15, and 16 inch fish were the most harvested. However, harvest was more spread out evenly across the inch groups. So this year we're seeing the highest catch and harvest per angler trip out of all the creel surveys, but our sample size is small. Only 32 bass anglers have been surveyed so far. Retention rates, which is based on fish harvested per angler hour, is the lowest, and so far 0 out of 32 bass anglers harvested more than 8 bass this year. So to conclude, the proposed creel limit of 25 per person would show no impact or change to the size structure for crappie. You're looking at a 1.9% increase in angler total catch. That's not harvest, just total catch, which would show no impact. Limits would have to be drastically lowered to show to impact harvest rates and alter the crappie size structure. A drastic regulation scenario of 5 crappie per person limit would increase angler catch rate, total catch by 19%, which equates to only 2 more fish being caught per trip. The proposed crappie 10-inch minimum length limit would reduce harvest and increase that intraspecific competition that we're experiencing out there in the complex, which would lead to decreased growth rates and possibly stunt the population. The proposed bass creel limit of 8 per person would show no impact or change to the size structure. Only 3.2% of largemouth bass anglers harvest more than 8 bass in the complex. A drastic regulation scenario of 2 largemouth bass per person limit would only show an increased angler catch by 10%, which equates to 0.66 more fish being caught. The proposed largemouth bass 14-inch minimum length limit would reduce harvest and increase intraspecific competition, which would lead to decreased growth rates as well and possibly stunt the population. The increase in angler total catch would be 32%, which equates to only 1 more fish being caught by anglers. Today, most bass anglers still practice catch and release of all the bass that they catch. So to conclude, the Saline Larto complex is seeing the tail end of a boom and bust crappie fishery, but our habitat is still lacking in the complex. So our ask from Mother Nature is for stable water to help reestablish beneficial aquatic vegetation, continue habitat enhancement projects throughout the complex. So far, we've deployed 283 Christmas trees, 12 pallet reefs, and 24 locations throughout the complex. And we've also felled 9 trees along the shoreline for shoreline habitat cover, and we've carried out multiple beneficial vegetation plantings. So again, we are scheduled to sample crappie and bass populations this fall, just in a couple months, to collect more data and age and growth. And we also recommend for now the complex comply with the statewide regulations, as a minimum length limit could reduce creel limits, which could worsen an already slow growth rate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. It was very informative. And at this point, I'd like to see Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson, if he'd like to come and address us. I know that he's here, and so I want to give him a few minutes to give us some information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, thank you very much for making time for us this morning. And I want to thank the department, and particularly those in our area of District 27, which is Rapides Parish. And I come to you and make this request based upon, I don't have the science. I have the people who have lived on this lake for their whole life, who have fished this lake their whole life. I come here on behalf of the Rapides Parish Police Jury who requested that this action be taken, as well as the representatives from Catahoula, LaSalle, Avoyelles, and Rapides Parish. This resolution passed unanimously through the legislature. And it comes about because we recognize that Saline Larto, like I'm sure in your area, you have an area of waterway or natural resources, is one of the biggest gifts God has given the people in our area. And it is something that people love very much. It is family. It is people who have fished since their daddies and grandfathers. And I have heard since being elected in 2019, the same thing over and over. Our lake is not what it used to be. And each year it's more. We hear of stories you hear the stories that we're not catching anything to people that say it's a shame that I'm seeing people take fish, that white perch, that are just a few inches long out of our lake, or bass that are too small. But everyone who's legally catching fish on Saline Larto that I hear from says the same thing. It's terrible. We're not fishing there like we used to. People aren't coming here anymore like they used to. They believe, maybe contrary to what the statistics, although I note something interesting about the statistics. He says that most people aren't catching. The vast majority, people don't catch more than 25 white perch. All we're asking is that we make that the limit. If that's the case, that won't make much difference on that percentage that he had a problem with. He also said 10-inch was an average. That's all we're asking on the white perch limit. 10-inch limit, 25 max. And with the bass, I think his statistics were similar to what we're requesting. I can't argue with a scientist, and particularly somebody that I have a lot of respect for and does a great job for you. But my people are very adamant that they want to see a reduction in the amount of small fish that are being taken out of the lake that they believe is hurting the lake significantly for them and for their children and grandchildren, that they want to have the same experience and the same enjoyment from this gift from God that Saline Larto is to us. So, gentlemen, I know you have a lot of tasks and a lot of responsibility, but as I talk to the people in my district and as I talk to the reps in their districts surrounding the lake, their people are all consistent in this request. So that's why I'm here as their representative today.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. And
Thank you.
we'll definitely consider it when, I think Commissioner Blanchard has Commissioner Brister has something.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Mr. Speaker?
Good morning.
I always want to say that.
Well, I like saying that, Mr. Commissioner. So
So can you put that picture back up of shows where we're talking about here? They're
talking about the-
complex.
The Creel survey
No, well, it's on page 8.
on 8.
Got
Okay.
that one. So when you say the Saline Larto complex,
Yes, sir.
so I take it when you, Mr. Speaker, when you're saying the lake, are you talking about Saline? Is that a
I'm
lake?
saying the
Saline?
complex,
Okay.
that entire complex,
But
it's
there's-
on those 4 different parishes.
Right, but okay, so it all feeds in like, but do y'all call the one on the left, the one that at the left there is pointing to, what do y'all call
That
it?
is Saline Lake.
Saline Lake.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then Larto Lake, is that the same one
That's-
where Honey Break is?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. How influenced by the river is that every year?
It's pretty frequent. 2018 was 2018 was one of the severe floods, prolonged high water events. 2019, there was a flood. 2020, we've had a drought in 23, and we actually had a high water again this spring out there.
We've also had the weir has failed a few times.
Yeah,
and
that
we've
was
had
back in
problems also.
2013 timeframe. Yeah.
So, Mr. Speaker, I love hearing what local people have to say because it's, I too, the science is great, but I love to hear what local people say. Is it only the size and number? Is that the biggest thing
Yes,
that they're?
Well, the number is the big thing.
Okay.
And of course, they attribute that to the fact that they do see people taking out ice chests full of white perch that aren't even, they're not really, they shouldn't be taking them out of the lake. And it's somewhat amazing we don't have any size limit on white perch.
I feel y'all's pain. Where I'm from, and they've heard it to their blue in the face, but along the Mississippi River, I'm
Yes,
from
sir.
Lake Providence, and, generations of people, have been able to go to the public landings, put their boat in, go out into the backwater, the lakes that are flooded by the Mississippi and catch white perch, bass, brim, just generations of people. And it ended. And it ended because of the invasive carp. And so that's,
We
it's
don't-
sad to see
Yes,
one go away.
Right.
And I really feel for your people.
Well, I'm encouraged by what he says,
Yeah,
but
no
we're
doubt.
not seeing the results of that. And we've worked, I guess, right after I got elected, we got together. You did a study for us.
Yes, sir.
And I'm pleased that they're doing another survey this fall.
Yeah. Well, we're
Uh,
doing a creel survey right now this year.
But I would ask if the commission is not inclined to make that a permanent limit on bass and white perch, that perhaps we make it a 5-year limit or something to give it a
Put a
chance
sunset
to
on it.
see. Yes, it would satisfy the people who are experts on who they decide is going to be their state representative.
Yeah.
And,
I
and I
understand.
respect those experts, I'm sorry, but more than the scientists.
I totally understand your motivation for being here, and thank you.
I also fish the lake. It's
Yeah.
important to me, and I've seen a tremendous decline and number of fishermen on the lake.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate
And
it.
thank you for all of you do. Y'all have, people don't know, and I didn't know until I became in the legislature, how many areas and how big of a responsibility and how passionate the people are who come to you, which is good or bad. But I appreciate the time that you devote to this job. Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioners have any questions?
Question. Thank you, Shelby.
No problem.
No guiding activities are allowed in this complex. Is that correct?
So there are guides in the complex. I believe they cannot be within the WMA boundary is what I've heard.
So they could still stay in the blue, but not in the red. Is that right?
Well, like the Larto area, you see how around Larto, there's not red all the way around. There's residential camps along that. So from what I've heard from our law enforcement is they're not technically supposed to be within the WMA boundary where it has both sides.
Okay, so guides are allowed in the complex right now. That
Correct. Yes, sir. And there are guides.
That's it? Okay. No other questions? Okay, thank you, Shelby.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. And thank you for the information. It was informative.
No problem.
Okay, on to agenda item number 8, enforcement report, August 2025. Captain Davis, Madera, Enforcement Division.
Good morning.
Morning.
For the month of August, the Enforcement Division issued a total of 781 citations. That's including civil, criminal, and warning citations. Boating incidents, we had 7 total, 0 fatalities involved in those 7, 3 of which included injured subjects. In public assistance for the month of August, we had 51 total, 30 via land and 21 via water. In cases of interest for the month, on August 15th, agents arrested 1 subject for alleged drug and firearm violations and cited another subject for alleged shrimping violations in Iberia Parish. Agents arrested a Houma man for possession of cocaine, possession of marijuana, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of unregistered or illegally transferred weapons, possession of a firearm by convicted felon, and possession of a firearm in the presence of a Control 2 substance. Agents cited the captain, also of Houma, for using oversized butterfly net or skimmers, failure to comply with stone crab requirements, and violation of turtle excluded device or TED requirements. Agents were on patrol in Cote Blanche Bay when they observed a commercial shrimping vessel actively skimming for shrimp. After an inspection of the skimming nets, agents learned the nets were oversized and did not comply with TED requirements. Agents found the men in possession of a total of 1,813 pounds of shrimp, which were seized and sold at the dock to the highest bidder according to department protocol. Agents also seized the 2 illegal skimmer nets. During the stop, agents also found the deckhand, a convicted felon, in possession of cocaine, marijuana, drug paraphernalia, and a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun. Agents seized the cocaine, marijuana, drug paraphernalia, and the shotgun. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon brings a $1,000 to $5,000 fine and 5 to 20 years in jail. Possession of a firearm while in the presence of a Schedule II substance carries up to a $10,000 fine and 5 to 10 years in jail. Possession of cocaine brings up to a $5,000 fine and 2 years in jail. Possession of the illegally transferred weapon or unregistered weapon carries a $500 to $2,000 fine and 1 to 5 years in jail. Possession of drug paraphernalia brings up to a $300 fine and 15 days in jail. Using oversized skimmer nets and failing to comply with stone crab requirements brings a $250 to $500 fine and up to 90 days in jail for each offense. Violating the TED requirements carries up to a $350 fine. In our second case of interest, agents apprehended 4 subjects for alleged alligator hunting violations on August 6th in Wynn Parish. Agents cited 2 Winfield men, a Jonesboro man, and a 17-year-old for 8 counts each of taking or possessing alligators during closed season. Agents received information on August 2nd about dead alligators floating in the north end channel of Saline Lake. I guess a coincidence there, just talking about Saline Lake, but that's where they were. Agents arrived at the scene and observed dead alligators in the water with bullet wounds in their heads, and some having the tails removed. During the investigation, agents learned that 4 subjects were out frogging in the early morning hours of August 1st on Saline Lake when they shot and killed 8 alligators. Taking or possessing alligators during closed season brings a $400 to $950 fine and up to 120 days in jail. The subjects may also be responsible for the civil restitution totaling over $3,000. Agents wrote 24 citations for alleged recreational fishing violations in Plaquemines Parish on July 25th and 26th. Agents encountered several charter fishing vessels in the Venice area coming back from their offshore fishing trips. Agents performed license and compliance checks on the vessels and found the passengers in possession of snapper, red snapper, and yellowfin tuna. During the inspections, agents found 12 non-resident anglers on various charter trips without their required fishing licenses. The 12 subjects were cited for failing to possess non-resident basic and saltwater licenses. The LWF Enforcement Division would like to remind the public that anyone 18 years of age or older is required to possess the required Louisiana fishing license if chartering a fishing boat. That means a person chartering a boat must possess the 3-day charter guide license that covers both basic and saltwater licenses, or possess a basic fishing license if fishing in freshwater, or basic fishing and saltwater if fishing in saltwater. Involved in the case, agents seized 34 total red snapper and 1 yellowfin tuna, which were donated to local charity. Fishing without a non-resident fishing license and fishing and without a non-resident saltwater fishing license brings up to a $350 fine for each offense. The 12 subjects could face a total of $1,413 in civil restitution in the case. I'll field any questions by the commission now if y'all have any.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that, Captain Madera. Any questions? Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
good
Y'all have a nice day.
Appreciate it. Okay. Agenda item number 9, receive and consider a notice of intent to establish protocols for abandoned and salvaged recreational vessel registration and tilting. Captain Joe Russo, Boating Law Administrator, Enforcement Division.
Morning again.
Good morning.
So I'm here to discuss the proposed notice of intent regarding abandoned and salvaged recreational vessels, specific to the registering and titling of such vessels. So prior to this legislative session, Louisiana Revised Statute 34-843, there was a process in place for the removal of abandoned vessels that were in our waterways. It was catered mostly around government action, but primarily during that time, the department had a standing policy that we did not register or title salvaged vessels. So any of these vessels that may have been serviceable in the area, if they were recovered, they were not able to be re-registered, and the only thing that could be done would be destroyed. During this 2025 regular session, with Act number 216 from House Bill number 676, they had made changes to the legislation, including the following. If an object is not removed by an owner within the periods provided within that section, the authority or a third party, that's one of the new additions to this, a third party may remove at their own expense and junk, discard, or otherwise dispose of the object, or sell, exchange, or otherwise transfer ownership of the object. In addition to that, it mandates that the Department of Wildlife and Fisheries adopt rules and regulations to provide for these two processes: the ability for parties to obtain registration information and identify owners and lien holders, as well as their ability to obtain title for recovered vessels. The House bill furthermore added to this legislation 34-852-23, requiring that the department adopt rules and regulations to have guidelines and procedures for the registration and titling of salvaged abandoned vessels, as well as outboard motors. This notice of intent is to address this issue as required by statute from the regular session. What the notice of intent will do is define abandoned vessel, which I think is an important issue, because that definition does not currently exist exactly as a definition within the title. The definition comes from the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators recommendations, as well as language from the existing statute. The notice of intent will also establish procedures to how someone can obtain abandoned vessel information through Department of Wildlife and Fisheries Registration Office, and also outlines the procedures of the notice to owners for those owners of abandoned vessel, how they must be notified before someone else can take possession of that vessel. The notice of intent will also allow for third-party removal, establish registration and titling procedures for these recovered vessels, with some additional requirements that go above traditional registration to help minimize the possibilities of theft and fraud. It'll also strengthen the rights of private property owners, because the notice of intent will allow private property owners to act independently of the government to address abandoned vessels that may be on or moored to their private property. In conclusion, we are attempting to create a pathway for local governments to remove these abandoned vessels from their waterways. And once removed, they will have the ability to have these vessels titled or sell them to another person who can then get that vessel titled, or the vessel could be used for parts or scrap. We are also empowering Louisiana citizens themselves to be able to recover abandoned vessels for their own purposes and solidifying their legal ownership of the vessel. So example in this manner is after a hurricane or large storm and vessels get blown about, there are a large number of people that just abandon their vessel afterwards. Not everyone makes attempts to recover, and what ends up happening is insurance companies, or if it's non-insured, the vessel sits there. With these processes, a Louisiana citizen would be able to identify that vessel, work with their local government, and eventually be able to take ownership of that vessel for their own use and have it titled and registered.
Okay, very good. Seems like y'all did some, a lot of work on this. It's, any questions from any of the commissioners? Okay, so this is an NOI. Do we have, okay. A motion by Commissioner Brister, second by Commissioner Reynolds. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day. sorry about that, Richard. You have I didn't see a card here, but you filling one out?
It's in the process.
You in the process?
Thank you, Mr.
3 minutes,
Chairman, members
please,
of the
sir.
commission. I'll be less than 3.
Thank you.
And I'm just getting here, saw this on the agenda. I missed this in this year's session, so I'm not sure where you guys' authority to potentially expand on what was passed. I'm not even quite sure on what was passed because this is the first I'm seeing of that bill. Where I was going to comment on would be the word recreational and whether or not it could be potentially expanded to be commercial vessels as well, or if that would have to go through the legislative process. Of course, this is nothing against our commercial friends. I do have a captain in the Slidell area that has called me a couple times saying that there are several commercial vessels that are on his path out to the fishing areas. And every now and then he'll have to answer questions from his customers. Hey, what's that out there? And he'll kind of have to say, well, those are derelict commercial vessels. They've been there for years. Nothing's happening to those. So if there was an opportunity for this to be expanded to commercial vessels as well, I know one captain in Slidell that would be very happy and motivated to potentially take advantage of the good thing that you guys are talking about here today. So that's really all I wanted to say. I may have missed the boat on seeing if it could be added to that NOI, but of course, this is the beginning of the process and there will be several more steps in the process to go. So that's all I had to say. Thank you all so much. And while I'm up here, I do want to thank and commend the department for their work on the illegal charter customers and getting those citations out in the Venice area. So we do appreciate y'all for doing that as well. And thank you for letting me speak in overtime. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And
And I'll
yes,
fill it.
okay, very good. Yeah, the department did a good job on that. So good. Okay, agenda item number 10. Receive and consider a declaration of emergency to allow disabled veterans to use any weapon during primitive firearm season. Dr. Jeff Duguay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Dr. Jeff Duguay, Director over Game Species Management. I just have a very brief presentation. Currently, youth 17 and under, as well as individuals 65 and older, may hunt with any legal weapon during the primitive firearm season. So we have a declaration of emergency to add disabled American veterans to this. So that will make it consistent with what we already have. And just for information, disabled veteran license or properly licensed hunters that meet the requirements of revised statute Title 56, 3000 H1, those would be eligible. And that's a person who is a veteran of the United States Armed Forces, including the Louisiana Army National Guard or Louisiana Air National Guard, having a permanent service connected disability classification of 50% or more. So those individuals qualify as the disabled veterans. And that is all. Questions?
Thank you very much. Thank you for working, getting this done as quickly as we could. I know it was brought to our attention last meeting, but I think it's good. Do we have any commissioners with any questions or comments? Okay, we do. Yes, we do have one. We have one public comment. And let's see, where did I put that card? Here we go. You withdraw your request? Okay, thank you for your service, sir. Very good, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Duguay. Okay, Mr. Brister, I think you had a motion. Okay, motion by Commissioner Brister, second by Commissioner Reynolds. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 11. Receive and consider a declaration of emergency to establish hunting seasons for Bow Chitto and Flatwood Savannah WMAs. David Breathup. And I know I didn't get that right, but I'm going to work on that one.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. David Breithup, biologist administrator for the Habitat Stewardship Branch of the Wildlife Division. Bring to you this morning a declaration of emergency to establish hunting seasons for 2 recently acquired properties that you guys voted to incorporate in WMA system on July 8th. These purchases were executed over the spring and summer. And as you know, we use this declaration of emergency process to establish hunting seasons outside of our normal notice of intent process due to our opportunity to purchase these things and when that came about. So the first one would be the Bogachita WMA. Again, that you guys incorporated in July, 1,643 acres south and west of Franklinton, Louisiana. Our proposal is to have deer, same as outside season archery only for either sex, small game and waterfowl, same as outside. Beagles allowed for rabbits, dogs allowed for squirrel season from February 1st to the 28th. Raccoon nighttime season, the month of February. And then the vessels in the interior of this WMA would be limited to trolling motors only, no internal combustion engines allowed. For Flatwood Savannah, west of Kinder, Louisiana, 427 acres. Similar season framework, deer same as outside, archery only either sex, small game and waterfowl, be same as outside, beagles allowed for rabbits, dogs allowed for squirrels hunting from the first Saturday of January through the last day of February. Effective date of this declaration of emergency would be today and run through the remainder of the resident game hunting season for 25 and 26. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions from any commissioners? Okay, so this D, the motion motion by Commissioner Blanchard, second by Commissioner Martin. All in favor? Aye. It passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day. Okay, agenda item number 13. Receive and consider a declaration of emergency to set the 2025-2026 oyster season. Robert Caballero, Marine Fisheries Biologist.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Again, my name is Robert Caballero. I'm the biologist at the head of the oyster program for the department. I'll be presenting the 2025 oyster stock assessment and our 25-26 season recommendations. Starting with some background information, here's the historical commercial oyster landings in Louisiana and sacks of oysters. We have a split between the public grounds, which are in black, and the oyster leases in gray. As you can see, our commercial oyster leases have been providing the bulk of the historical annual landings. And just this past 2024 season, we had 991,264 sacks harvested, which was a 5.7% increase from last year, with the public oyster grounds providing 8.8% of that harvest. Here we see a map of Louisiana coastline. Our white line indicates all of our public oyster areas in the state. All the little yellow dots are all of our sampling stations that we hit. Our biologists scuba dive in July and take our oyster stock assessments and get density readings on top of all of our reefs. This sampling seasons, we hit 107 sites with 545 total replicates. Here in this graph, we could see the results of our oyster stock assessment collected by the department. The black bars represent the seed oysters. The black line is our 20-year long-term average for seed oysters. The white bar represents our market and seaside sack size oysters, and our blue line is our 20-year long-term average for sack oysters. You could see that we had an 8.4% increase in seed from last year, 34.7% decrease in our sack market size oysters from last year, and a total decrease in 15.8% in our total oyster resource from last year. But we're still up 10.8% over our long-term, 20-year long-term average. From the whole state stock assessment, we're going to break it down by coastal study areas from east to west. We have CSA 1 north in our northern Pontchartrain Basin, And this includes our St. Tammany, St. Bernard Parish, and Orleans Parish. Then we have CSA 1 South is our South Pontchartrain Basin, which includes St. Bernard and Plaquemines Parish. Our CSA 3 is our Barataria Basin, which includes Plaquemines, Jefferson, parts of Lafourche. CSA 5 East is our Lafourche and Terrebonne parishes. CSA 5 West is Sister Lake, Bay Juniper, Lake Michon, our Terrebonne Parish. CSA 6 is our Vermilion Bay areas in St. Mary's, Iberia, Vermilion parishes. And CSA 7 is our Calcasieu and Sabine Lakes, which is our Cameron Parish. Here's our table with the results of the total seed and market size oysters for each area in barrels compared to last year's stock assessment. If you see green, it's an increase from last year. If you see red, it's a decrease from last year in those areas. As you see, North Pontchartrain, north of the MRGO in the Mississippi Sound area, we saw an increase in seed and decrease in market with a 5.2% increase from last year. And South Pontchartrain in the Breton Sound area, we saw an increase in both seed and market oyster resource. It was 14 times greater than it was last year. Hackberry Bay, all of our oyster resources in Hackberry Bay, decrease in both seed and market. It's down 44.4% since last year. Still no resource found in our Lake Shannon, Lake Felicity areas. It's still been no oysters found for the last couple of years. Sister Lake has seen an increase in 3.2% overall from last year, mostly on our recent culture plants. Lake Michon and Bay Juniper has seen a 79.5% decrease from last year with a drop in both seed and market oysters. Calcasieu Lake had a 41.3 increase on the east side and a 59.5% decrease in West Cove. Overall, over 1 million barrels of resource, but a decrease in 15.8% since last year. Here's just another graph to see that. You can see where the oyster resource is concentrated across the state. We have our Mississippi Sound is our North Pontchartrain Basin. Breton Sound is our South Pontchartrain Basin. Hackberry Bay is our Barataria Basin. Sister Lake is our Terrebonne Basin. Lake Michon, Bay Juniper is in our Terrebonne Basin. Calcasieu Lake is in Calcasieu Basin, and Sabine Lake on our border in the Sabine Basin. Calcasieu Lake contains most of our oysters in the state. The Mississippi Sound with the recent culture plantings in Drum Bay and Morgan Harbor are seeing stock in that area increase. There's also Sabine Lake here, which is closed to harvest due to legislation. It's not represented in our previous graphs due to it being non-harvestable, but Sabine is sampled every other year, and currently the stock is 9.4% increase in seed and a 7.8% increase, a decrease in market from 2023. Here's our season recommendations. You should have in front of you a letter from the Oyster Task Force. I met with them on August 26th. They agreed with our recommendations, just wanted to add a 3-day bedding season in the North Pontchartrain area, which we obliged. So the department is recommending a 1-day bedding season in Sister Lake. And at the task force request, we did a 3-day bedding season east of the river in areas 1 and 2 with no more than 15% non-living material in the bedding loads, opening on September 29th. Then our Vermilion area will open for bedding September 8th and remain open till the end of the season to utilize any resource before any of the rivers, and I'll get to it. We're recommending opening LDH harvest areas 1 through 5 in that North Pontchartrain area for sacking November 3rd with 30 sack per vessel with a 2-day possession limit. Our LDH area 5 in South Pontchartrain, that's our Lake Fortuna, Machias area, will be opening at the same time, but closing on November 28th. Our Sister Lake will open at the same time, November 3rd for 2 weeks, close November 14th. And then our sacking in Vermilion area will open on October 13th with no possession limits. There's just some LDH lines that the fishermen are aware of, and that whenever they open them, they'll be able to go in there and harvest. Without it, they'll have to get a relay permit from the health department. Then in West Cove and Calcasieu Lake opening November 1st with a 15 sack limit per vessel. Then on January 1st, we recommend to open the east side with day limit of 15. Total harvest in the lake not to surpass 15 sacks in the whole lake. And then we have several of our reefs remaining closed due to a resting period or due to lack of oyster resource. And here's just our map for our news release and all the dates. You can see our blue lines are all the areas that are open. Our red lines are all our closed reefs. Additional season regulations that are in the DE. Same as we had in past seasons. We're having a restriction of 15% non-living reef material in bedding loads and allowing enforcement biologists to inspect the bedding loads. This is to restrict any removal excess reef material. We also restriction of sacks or containers during the bedding season to prevent the direct market sale of oysters. Also restricting market harvest and bedding during the same day. Reminding oyster harvesters of LDH permitting regs. Also allowing the use of oyster cargo vessels if they're properly permitted. And then requirement of unshackling oyster dredges after harvesting hours. We'll be continuing with our electronic reporting to gather daily harvest estimates. The LDWF has been doing this for the last 3 seasons with the electronic reporting app being used last season exclusively. We haven't had any issues with the fishermen. Last year, we were at about 80.6% compliance for this measure last season. And with that, questions.
Okay, thank you. Robert, do any commissioner questions? Mr. Walt?
So our Vermilion area is getting inundated with some of the higher Atchafalaya River levels. So we want our fishermen to get in there and get the oysters before we have any permanent mortality. We're already starting to see some during our summer samples, but it's a finite resource. And then with the increase in river, most of it will be wiped out. So we want to have our fishermen get access to it and don't have any restrictions. They can get it before the river takes it all out.
Very good, thank you. Okay, go ahead. Commissioner Walker?
Robert, on the Calcasieu sacks per vessel per day, 15, how long's that number been in place?
So that's actually, we increased it this year. So by law, they can only get up to 25 sacks in that area. They've been around 10 to 15 for the last 3-4 years. We increased it to 15 on both sides this year because there is an abundant of resource. It's more of a market issue over there. They have one dealer buying. So it's, I talked to the dealer to see if he's okay with it. And it seems to be they're more interested in having a long season. But the dealer said he should be able to handle the increase in sacks.
Great, thank you.
Very good. They said take advantage of the resource while it's there, so it's good. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Blanchard that we move forward with the declaration of emergency as presented. Do we have a second? Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Martin, all in favor? Aye, motion passes. Thank you. Okay, item number 14, receive public comments. We have Chief Two Eagles to speak on treaty rights. But you know, we'll limit everything to 3 minutes, please, sir. Good morning. Oh, it's on. It's red. I see it's red. Oh,
There we
green.
go. Is it better? First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for allowing me to speak and the commissioners as well. I know it's a daunting task. I have had the pleasure of serving as law enforcement officer in the past. I also have committed to the programs that the state has for hunter safety. I teach those classes with the district attorney, teach them here, teach them at Waddill. And lately I've just been in awe that our rights as Native Americans have been decimated. I can't even begin to tell you the devastation at which it creates on a people when you tell somebody that I have a blood birthright that supersedes anybody else's here, and I've been called an alien. The Department of Wildlife and Fisheries has issued me an alien fishing license, an alien vessel license. The average person that's a resident is charged $96. To further the discrimination, they charge me $1,240 for the same license. The treaty rights in which I speak, which I'm sure every law enforcement officer here can attest to the fact that we all took an oath to uphold the United States Constitution, to support and defend it. Article 6 of the United States Constitution very clearly states that the treaties and the Constitution are the supreme law of the land. Every judge in every state shall be bound. Anything to the contrary is notwithstanding. So we took detrimental reliance on that to enforce the Article 6 of the Louisiana Purchase Treaty, which clearly says that the United States government agrees to uphold any treaties between the Indians of Louisiana and the King of Spain until by mutual consent, new articles or agreements can be written. We have not signed any of those. And I would like to also refresh everyone's memory. The original swath of land is not just the state of Louisiana, it's the entire Louisiana Purchase in which I speak. So it's very hurtful to come here and even say things like this, but it is a fact that the state of Louisiana has deprived us of these treaty rights and continue to do so. I even went so far as to have a conversation many times with judge, it's an administrative law judge, counsel for the department leaders, agents, and the state controls the buyers. They have recognized our treaty rights and determined that we are a sovereign nation and that they do not have jurisdiction over our treaty fishing rights, but yet they've still wanted me to pursue the programs.
Okay.
I'm looking for guidance.
Yes, that's your 3 minutes. We appreciate the comments and I guess what we have to do is we have to see if there's any way that we can assist in this, and we'll get with legal counsel because it's kind of first time hearing about it. So we would defer to anything to legal counsel on this issue and
Well,
hopefully we can-
legal counsel has recognized that, and
Okay.
I'm okay
Very
with that.
Okay.
But
Well,
thank you so much. I
Thank you for
appreciate
your
it.
comments. We
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you coming today. Okay. Motion to adjourn. Commissioner Martin, second by Commissioner Wall. Meeting adjourned.